It being Thursday, April 3rd, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. At this time, the Templeton Advisory Committee is going to be called to order. I just would like to read this preamble. The Templeton Advisory Committee regular business is being broadcast live on TCTV Channel 8 and the TCTV YouTube channel. Responses will be made to comments in the TCTV YouTube channel as time permits. The agenda and meeting materials for this business meeting were posted to mytowngovernment.org/01468 no later than 48 hours prior to the scheduled meeting, in accordance with Commonwealth of Massachusetts open meeting laws. The chair reserves the right to add items to, remove items from, or change the order of the agenda. However, the agenda is posted in advance to give the committee and public time to review the agenda items and to ensure the meeting runs within the allotted time frame. At this time, I would like to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Moser is on the Zoom.
I see him. Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good to see you, John. Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes of our last meeting held on February 27th, 2025. Has everybody had a chance to review them?
I had a chance to review them.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 27, 2025.
I'll second that.
Just a couple things. On the last page, item 7.
I
I think you meant me rather than my son.
I did fix that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what happened.
And the other thing, so before we take a roll call vote, there were 3 items within the minutes that were originally to be deferred to this meeting. The first would be an item that was brought up about the bonding of the town accountant. Mr. Kaplis was tasked to look into that. And also the HERO Act, which Mr. Kaplis was also tasked to look into that further. I have discussed these 2 items with Mr. Kaplis, and he knows, I intend to have these moved to a future meeting. And also a third item that has been brought up in the past, the regional school agreement. There is a letter that hopefully all of you received from Dr. Casavant about the issue of the regional school agreement. He's basically requesting that Phillipston place that item on their annual town meeting warrant. It's really a pretty strong request to do that. So in light of those 3 items will be deferred to a future meeting, either the May meeting or the June meeting. Is there any other discussion about the minutes?
I would, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to defer approving these so that I can go back and look, because there were some edits that I made that didn't get edited into
Probably
this.
didn't catch them.
Didn't
I-
catch them?
No, I made edits and I forwarded them to Kelsey, and they must have
Okay.
got lost in
Okay.
translation, because this isn't
Okay.
as the clerk signed, mine would
I can withdraw.
pass off.
I'll
Okay.
withdraw my motion. That's fine.
So I'm just
Clean 'em
gonna,
up.
cause yeah, I have them, I definitely caught that, and that it said Andrew Francis,
Okay,
and then there was a
thank you.
couple other spots.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to defer further discussion of the minutes until they can be cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, I told I don't know what happened, if the document didn't get sent properly, or
All right,
Definitely
Mr.
second
Caplis
that.
and Mr. Moser, is that okay with you? To defer the minutes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you all. We will defer it. Okay, the next item is public comments. And Mrs. Toth, do you want to come forward?
I haven't spoken in front, I don't think I've ever spoken in front of the advisory committee. So Liz Toth, Gray Road.
Okay, you know the drill.
Yeah, well, I assume it's the same, but we'll figure it out. I'll keep it short because I know you guys have a lot to cover. I had sent an email to both the select board and also to yourself because I didn't have, apologies to the rest of the committee. I didn't have your email addresses, so it just went to the chair. And I won't go into all of the detail in here, but basically what I did was I spent a Saturday going through looking at the February budget versus actual and comparing it to the FY25 budget book. And I came out with lots of questions. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. And it's, you know, there were differences in amounts. I don't know if something changed between when the budget book was produced and what actually ended up in, you know, in the accounting system. But, you know, just an example that, in developmental services, the personnel account had 191,500, but per the budget book, but the BVA shows 231,500. That there's a line for purchase of services, sealer of weights and measures. I looked online, I couldn't find an account. I couldn't find a contract for it. I'm assuming there should be one, but I couldn't find it.
Maybe I can help answer that question. I believe Templeton appoints a sealer of weights and measures. It's a town position. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So
all right.
there wouldn't necessarily be a
A
contract. It would be an appointed town position with, would you know, you were on the board a long time. Would you know what the compensation may be off the top?
Oh,
of your head?
no, not that far back. Sorry, I'm not even gonna guess at that. I'll be all over the internet in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you anyway.
No, we want to
asking.
save you from the internet, but so the sealer weights and measures is a, you know,
It's a required position.
it's a required, position.
I believe it's still in place.
I've made this ask to the select board previously, and I'll make the same request here.
Sure.
It would be really, I think it would be very helpful if we had just a list, a spreadsheet that said this person, this position, this description, and, you know, and if it's an appointed position, you know, when it ends or whatever. So that way it's across the entire town. So that way you
Town.
On
in
the town website
report.
or in the town report. It's
Yeah.
both. I think it's on both town website and town report. Whether or not it's been updated, I'm not sure, but you can look up any employee in the town of Templeton. You're gonna find
well.
the whole broken down list. I'm not.
Mm-mm.
Well, I think,
But I'm.
I think the
maybe
difference
not be
between
talking
the,
about the-
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think the difference is you think,
I want what it is today for the second, what it is, because you never know when somebody's coming up for the end of their term or for, you know, there's always those kinds of questions. And when somebody leaves a committee or board or whatever, and there's an opening, it just makes it easier, in my opinion, to find it. But anyways, that's just an ask. So,
I just want to try to define what you're saying is in the annual town report, let's use the example of Adam Lamontagne. I think that's a very good example. In the town, if you look in the town report, you will see Adam Lamontagne, his position as town administrator and his annual salary. That's in, you know, that's a public record, as is for any other town employee. You can find their name, their position, and their salary. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you may be looking for, and again, I use the example of Mr. Lamontagne. Mr. Lamontagne left in the middle of a fiscal year. So it appears that to me that you want to know is what has Mr. Lamontagne been paid up until the time he resigned?
I wasn't even looking
something in
I
real
wasn't even
time.
looking for the pay.
I don't think the
No,
payment you're
No,
looking for.
no, I'm just
Yeah.
looking for who is sitting in this position, right? So there was a report done looking at all of the town positions with, pay ranges and a job description, right? But there's never been at least to the best of my knowledge, a direct matchup between this position, these people, anything, it's. I've seen other towns do it where you actually know, but it's all right.
Can you,
Miss-
can you give an example of a town that appears to you to do it right?
Yeah.
Or could you email me?
I'll go.
I'm curious. I mean,
It's
there
been a
are.
while since I've looked, but yeah, I'll go find one.
Mr. Chair. if
Oh,
I
I'm
may.
sorry, yeah.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we sent her in the direction of Carol Harris, she can get that information.
That's
This is
correct.
Julie Richards, she started her term on this day, on this year, she resigned from this term on this year, correct?
That's correct.
The most updated list, it would come from Carol Harris, correct?
That's correct. And she's also tracking all the classes you're supposed to take, such as,
All for every committee, right?
yes.
Yeah, I was
Just
just,
wanted to confirm that, you could go see Carol,
I was trying to do self-help.
she's really good too, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
she's
the
very,
same.
very good in my dealings with her. She's been very.
Oh, I'm sure, I'm sure she is.
She's done the dog licenses, so she might have 5 minutes. I was in a line the other day, so.
Oh, my goodness, okay. The next one
Okay.
is just buildings and grounds has a line item for 12 cell phones for $624. Whereas the police dispatch also has a line item for cell phones for $8,560. And it's just a huge discrepancy. It's like, why? And then there's just, I think it's just a typo between accounts, between what's in the budget versus what's actually in the systems. And then the actual debt was, there's roughly $451,000 that came off the books for debt for last year. Where does that money go? And then the next thing is for the FY26 budget review meeting. I was assured by Mr. Kaplis that the changes discussed on that day would be included in an updated version of the budget book. I looked online today. I didn't see an updated version. Maybe I'm not looking in the right spot, but I didn't see it. And because there's a lot of really good conversations that day. The next thing is just the demo revolving account. It was only funded for $11,456. Where's the other roughly? I think it's supposed to be 70, 75, whatever the difference is there. My math is bad right now. But there should be a lot more money sitting in that account because we've gotten paid for 10 Pleasant Street, I believe. And then basically and this is probably a timing issue with, there's nothing, doesn't look like any monies have been reimbursed from Washington for the Brine revolving account. And then we have a whole bunch of grants that seem to be in the negative.
Yeah, the Bryan revolving account, I can answer that. In fact, when I read off the January BVA, that was one of the questions that I had as well. And I don't know, I haven't looked at the February BVA, but Mr. Sosik did not have a secretary for a few months who would have handled those monies. So I think that there were monies that came in and went out of that account being the winter season, but because of the hiring a new secretary to catch up.
Yeah.
I think that's the basis for that. But
And then
having asked that though, do you have anything else?
well, just one other thing was the fact that I can't find where the $200,000 grant for the economic development funds, I can't find the account, maybe it's staring me in the face, but I don't know where the 200,000, I had expected to see an account that said EDIC $200,000 grant money, and I didn't see it. So,
Okay.
that's it. I
Good question.
appreciate I appreciate your time. Thank you. Some of these questions you may not be able to answer, and it's just that, Liz, this is just the way it is. I get it. I'm just trying to be better informed. That's all.
Okay, and what I will tell you is, the public comment, I received the email, we have the list. And what I was planning to do anyway, concerning the February BVA, was to meet with the town accountant and go over all the questions that were generated tonight. And what I can do, it's probably gonna take about 3 weeks. But I could, at the end of, sometime within the 3 weeks, answer the questions in writing as best as I can. And also the answers to your questions and any other questions will be, read off at the next meeting of advisory and then uploaded for the public.
Like I said, I'm just seeing different things, and maybe it's a process thing that I'm not aware of, and it's time to educate us, and I'm perfectly happy with that answer.
Well, yeah, and the way I look at it is you're a citizen, you're a taxpayer, you have a right to know these things and,
Okay, well, thank you again for your time. Thank you.
all right, thank you. What I would like to do is there is, I did have, probably 40 or 50 questions for the town accountant concerning the January 2025 BVA. I could read this for the public. It would take a little bit of time, or don't know. I don't think I gave anybody copies of it.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you have a copy of it. You have the February BVA. What I was planning to do, if this is acceptable, is I would like to read from the January 2025 BVA, the questions and and then the answers, and then at that time I'd ask for a motion to either approve the January BVA and kind of file it away, or if you wish to defer it to another meeting, I'll do whatever the members wish to do as far as a vote. But does anybody have a problem if I read this?
No. How
No,
many pages you looking at over there?
it'll probably take me 7 or 8 minutes to read it. I think, okay. So this is the January BVA.
We're on to 5 now.
Okay. So the first item was asking about the snow and ice budget being $165,000, and as of the January BVA, 143,561 was spent. And the question was, I believe that the account is now over $165,000 and starting to deficit spend. What will the total expenditure be in your estimate? Will it be over $300,000 total for a deficit of approximately $135,000? And Mr. Sosek, in an email, he said that the snow and ice, as of March 5th, we are beyond deficit spending, and he was working on where we are at the current moment. And then on March 6th, Mr. Sosek informed me that the snow and ice budget of $165,000 is depleted, and that the deficit is at $174,005.04. So you take the total between the $165,000 budget and the $174,000 deficit. As of March 6th, the snow and ice account was $339,005.04. That's the total amount that had been spent as of March 6th. And I'm sure that total has gone up since then. And Next item is on page 4, line 22 of the January BVA. Baldwin School caretaking, $10 is left in the account, should be cleaned up. Melanie Jackson responded that unless she is otherwise notified, this $10 will be closed out to the general fund at the end of the present fiscal year. On page 4, line 23, the 2022 assessor revaluation, $20,000 budgeted and just $2,962 spent. Why so much money left in this account dating from 2022? And Justice Graves responded, and he responded by email as follows. On the 2022 revaluation account, there is a final revaluation bill, a 10% retainer, that we were billed for at the start of February. So that expense should reflect on the February budget versus actual. The revaluation accounts per the votes of town meeting are also utilized for necessary technical upgrades and for our cyclical review programs. We will need to use those funds to complete our current cyclical review for fiscal year 2026. The remaining funds will also need to be used for our annual interim statistical updates we do in between revaluation years, and our office anticipates needing to do a commercial review in the next 2 to 3 fiscal years ahead of our next revaluation in 2030. Again, page 4, line 24, DPW MS4 compliance, $90 is left in the account. And my question was, is this going to be cleaned up? And Bob Sosek by email responded that the MS4, if there is a balance, more than likely will encumber for the following year. Not sure what is going to be presented at the budget hearing for FY26 until the 15th of March. Page 4, line 25, Town Hall electrical panel, $8 being left in the account, should be cleaned up. Answer, Melanie Jackson, unless I am otherwise notified, this will be closed out to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year. Page 4, I'm sorry, page 5, line 2 from the top. There's a question that I had about the Norfolk County Agricultural Transportation. $2,760 budgeted amount and $16,123 expended. Then further down on page 5 at line 21, the 2025 budgeted amount is $43,470 and just $6,083 has been spent. And I asked if this was a timing issue, and the answer to that was emailed from Melanie Jackson, the town accountant. She said, Holly and I have already looked at this. The invoice was submitted for payment from the wrong account and will be reclassified. Page 5, line 26 from the top. Building and Grounds, Senior Center, $8,004 unspent from the year 2019. Why should this be returned to the general fund? Bob Sosek on March 5th, 2025 said that the balance is for the Senior Center and that he was going to check with Adam. And he thought that this may be held out to be used as part of the Senior Center kitchen project. On page 5, line.
That one's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, on page 5, lines 27 and 28 from the top, the 2020 assessor revaluation account, $4,175. Why is this unspent? Should this be returned to the general fund? Answer, the assessors responded that they have discussed this and will be closed out to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year. And that Justice further responded that he had talked with Melanie Jackson about closing out those dollars, the $4,175. Page 6, line 22, from the top, the Stone Bridge, $34,000 in unspent money from the special town meeting held November 2019. Any plans to spend this? And the answer, emailed from Jessica Case. There is an article that has been submitted to the Select Board office to close this project account. It should be going in front of town meeting to be voted upon. Page 6, line 26 from the top, again, the Stone Bridge, $49,337 in unspent money from a special town meeting held in October 2020. Any plans to spend this? Jessica Case answered by email. There is an article that has been submitted to the Select Board office to close this project account. It should be going in front of town meeting to be voted upon. The next item, page 6, line 28, Boynton Library. It's concerned $69,719 appropriated at the annual town meeting held in May 2018. $2,808 has been expended and $66,911.82 remains. Any plans to spend this? And Jackie Prime responded by email that this is a CPA award for the library. The remainder of the funds will be spent on the interior work, which is currently in the design phase with SSV Architects. Next question comes page 7, line 13. $2,758 has been allocated for special articles. This involves CPC monies. The question basically was, there's $2,324,216 on the books. And the question is, what is appropriate good practice concerning unspent money on the books year after year? Should there be a sunset bylaw that limits the amount of time money remains unspent? And the answer from Melanie Jackson concerning the $2 million was all of these articles belong to the CPC. Other than one from 2010, they are not that old. The CPC can speak to the articles and why they have not been expended. They can technically stay on the books until the projects are complete, where the CPC determines the project will not occur and then can be voted back to the CPC fund they came from. Page 7, line 21, Capital Stabilization Fund. What is the $189,626 expenditure? Answer from Melanie Jackson. $63,916 was annual town meeting, Article 25, highway building and ground purchases. And then the balance of $125,710.88 was special town meeting Article 2, December 5th, 2024, for the senior center kitchen. Page 8, line 32, there's a library gift line item of $260,000, $260,323.54. What does this encompass and why no expenditures this fiscal year? Answer from Jackie Prime by email. This is a gift from the estate of Anne and Ed Nordfors. The language of the bequest required that it be used for renovations and upgrades to the physical building. The remainder of the funds will be spent on the interior work, which is currently in the design phase with SSV Architects. Page 9, line 30 from the top. This is the Brine Revolving Fund, $9,566.09. Why no expenditure from this fund during what has been a severe winter? And the answer from Bob Sosek, email dated March 5th, 2025. The Brine Fund, there will be activity soon. I had no secretary for a few months, and a new secretary is in the process of getting this account straightened out. Page 10, line 35 from the top, library grant expenses, $131,473.44. Why has just $5,568 been expended this fiscal year? Are there plans to spend the remaining $125,904? The answer, email from Jackie Prime. This amount represents the annual state grant award that we receive upon meeting the requirements for certification set forth by the Board of Library Commissioners. The use of these funds is unrestricted. It is not uncommon for libraries to receive state grant monies for future projects. I anticipate some of these funds being used to supplement the restoration/renovation project mentioned above. Page 11, line 23 from the top, the Green Communities Grant, $20,016 remaining and unexpended, and why and when will this be expended, and can it be returned to the general fund? And this is going to be, I did not obtain an answer to that, and I'm going to defer that to review of the February 2025 BVA. And then the next to the last question, ARPA, $971,703 available, of which $107,812 has been expended, leaving $863,891 unspent, but probably allocated. How much is unspent and unallocated? And the answer from Melanie Jackson, email dated March 5th, 2025. Funds have been allocated with approved purchase orders acquired. They may be an amount of just over $2,000 that is unspent, as it appears to be a previous accounting error, though I have not received the final word on that yet. Page 14, and this is the final item, bottom line, Boynton Library Expendable Trust, $14,119. The question is, why has this not been spent? And the answer from Jackie Prime was that the treasurer has researched the language of this trust, and to my understanding has not been able to locate any specifics about the allowable use of these funds. If possible, it could supplement the restoration/renovation project expenses if needed. And that's all I have. And this will all be made a public record and uploaded. And I will,
Gonna email it to me.
yeah, I will email to my fellow members what I just read.
Perfect, thank you.
And I apologize for the oversight for not doing that. Okay, is there any other discussion concerning the January 2025 BVA? Or any comments? Okay, there being none, the next item is discussion and approval of the February 2025 BVA. And Mrs. Toth, had questions. And at this time, I would like to ask if any board members have any questions about the February 2025 BVA that I should present to the town accountant and the department heads.
I don't have any at this time, but I was just wondering if we were gonna approve the January ones or not. Are we gonna table that till everybody gets the list?
I like to table that if that's acceptable. The January BVA, I'd like to table that.
Mr. Chair, since the February is going to supersede the January, I would make a motion to accept it as it is right now with your questions and answers that were raised. And then let's move on to the February, because obviously nothing's going to change January. We're going to go right into February's, because February is going to supersede January.
Do you wish to make a motion?
I do. I'll make a motion to accept it as is right now.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any further discussion?
That makes sense. You're just
Yeah,
cleaning
yeah,
up
that
the
does
books.
make sense. All right, I'm gonna do a roll call vote because we have a couple of folks out in Zoom land. Mr. Caplis,
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Yes.
and I also vote yes, so it's 5-0, yes. So now, we go to the item on the agenda for the February 2025 BVA. And, you know, Mrs. Toth already has questions, which I'm going to go to the town accountant with. And what I would like to ask is, at this time, if any members have a particular item that they would like to have addressed by the town accountant.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Caplis. Go ahead.
Look, I'm gonna start with page 5, fire truck, tanker truck, allocation of 97,789. It's been paid and there's any balance of 756.21. So I'm assuming at the end of the fiscal year, that will roll into free cash, I would assume.
This is the very top item on page 5.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and if you scroll down a bit lower, you get the police cruiser at 26,094. There's 22,715 left in that allocation. I'm assuming since that cruiser was paid for, I'm assuming those allocations would go back to either free cash or to the general fund.
So would you like the town account to be asked if it is going back to the general fund?
It's either going to go back to the general fund or based on, end of year excess dollars, it usually goes to like free cash. But I'm assuming it's either going to go one or the other.
Okay.
Which also goes to the B&G oil tanks, the new oil tanks that we had to purchase for the town buildings, because ours were, really old and was going to cause a hazard. But we started with 29,000, but there's still about 10,000 in that. So I don't know if he still needs to buy oil tanks or not, or if we met our requirement with the oil tanks, if we got a good deal, that would definitely be a question.
Mr. Caplis, I had a question myself about that because I
Yeah.
remember when Mr. Sosa came before advisory or at, budget meetings a year ago, he stressed the need to replace these tanks prior to the present heating season. He wanted all the tanks in no later than October 1st.
That's right.
And it appears to me in looking at this that all of the tanks were installed except perhaps one.
Mhm.
And I've been wondering about that. If he just, if it was decided that it could be deferred to another year or, if maybe the tank wasn't needed.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering why, because it seemed like he was almost a stampede. We got to spend all that money right away and
Right.
have some left.
So that's a good question for her.
Do you have that?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll say this question is probably for the CPC because most of the CPC articles that you've already brought from the 2020 from the January BVA, I believe all those CPC funds, if I'm not mistaken, a warrant article will be formed for town meeting, and those funds all should go back to the CPC, not to the general fund, because those are CPC funding. Those are CPC dollars, so they shouldn't go back to the general fund. So if somebody's telling you otherwise, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that those funds belong to CPC and then they go back to CPC if they're not utilized.
I believe that there will be 2 articles at the upcoming town meeting, or one article related to those funds. I do agree with you, though. It should go back to the CPC and not the general fund.
Then my last question is the water stabilization account. Let me get what page it's on here. It's on page 13. It's negative $500,000.
This is a $502,000 figure, Mr. Caplis?
Correct. I don't know, I don't know how they were allocated. Looks like $320.38, but the net activity was 1,608,380. And then they spent 1,608,771 cents, leaves a negative balance of 502,022 and 70 cents. Do you see that?
I do see that. Good catch. On your list.
Yep.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Caplis. Mr. Moser, do you have anything?
I would just have a more general question for the town accountant to solicit her opinion on whether there's any fundamental changes that she's made in approach or any issues that she found as she's transitioned over from our prior town accountant.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moser. Do you have any other questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Julie, do you have any questions?
No, this one, no, thank you.
Jacqueline?
No, not this time. Thank you.
I'm all set as well. So do we, do I need a motion to present this to the town accountant or to defer to another month?
I'll make a motion for you to go to the town accountant to get those questions
Do I have
answered, and be prepared.
I'm sorry, Mr. Caplis, you were breaking up. Could you restate the motion, please?
Make a motion to go to the town accountant with those questions to be answered and hopefully have it presented at our next meeting.
I would second that motion, John.
And perhaps make it more specific, that's a February 2025 BVA.
That would be correct. The questions that I just raised, along with even Mr. Moser's question about her practices, if there's been any changes or updates, or how she's been working with the Department of Revenue, et cetera.
Do you have a motion?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Moser?
Yes.
Mr. Caplis?
Yes.
Yes.
Jacqueline?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Thank you. The next item, it should be in your packet, are two invoices. Sorry, three. Related to the MMA conference attended by two of our members. And the first in the packet is invoice number 136487 in the amount of $385. And this would be the expenses related to member Jacqueline McComber for attendance of the MMA conference. The second one would be $320 again for the expenses for the attendance of myself at the MMA conference. And the third would be a mileage, $268.
That's invoice. Yeah, that's,
That from your mileage.
yeah, and the hotel.
All right, the last invoice would be mileage, this would be for expenses of Jacqueline. $138.60 for mileage, $25 for parking. $243.83 for staying at the Weston Hotel. And the grand total of this reimbursement is $599.03. So what I would like to do, because of the one being for myself, I'm going to I'm going to recuse recuse myself from the vote. Just vote present. I don't feel it's proper that I vote for my own expense. But for the invoice for $320 for my expenses, could I have a motion and a second?
So, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to do so. Just as a point of clarification, my motion would be to use our advisory committee funds to pay these invoices, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I move that the advisory committee vote to approve and pay the two invoices as submitted from the funds of the advisory committee.
Yeah, there's actually three, Andrew.
Oh, okay, you're right. Your reimbursement, Jacqueline's reimbursement, and then the invoice to the MMA conference itself.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I would update or amend my motion to include all three of the invoices as presented.
And Mr. Chair, I would second that, but I do have a question first.
Sure.
Does this always come from the advisory committee account? Because there's a separate MMA account for people to attend, so why would it come from our monies? And not be submitted to that? Unless that's changed, and I'm unaware of that.
It is there is a line item under advisory expenses. So this would come out of the advisory account. I think it was about $1,500 in the account.
Okay,
So
so it wouldn't come from the actual MMA account.
Will not.
It wouldn't.
no,
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. So I'll second that motion.
Right.
That's a really good event, MMA.
it
Hope you
is.
guys
It's money-
enjoyed it.
it's money very well.
Very well spent money. Yeah.
Right, what I'd like to do is, Mr. Mosier, can you conduct these motions? I think Ms. McCarver and myself should vote present
Yep.
on the motions that concern us.
Yeah, that's fine. So just as a point of order, if I made the motion, am I able to preside over the motion? Or
Yes,
should we entertain a motion from another party?
He can preside over the motion.
I believe you can, yes.
Okay, that was my impression as well. All right, so then with Mr. Francis and Ms. Macumber choosing not to participate, I would call a roll call vote. Is there any further discussion on this before we take a roll call vote?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chair, my question is, you said there was three, so it's $385, $320. Then there's one for $599.03. Is that correct?
that's correct.
So your total of $1,304.06. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For two.
Okay, thank you.
And the line item for advisory was $1,500, so we still have a little bit under $200 left.
Well spent.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we will conduct the roll call vote now. Mr. Francis,
I vote present.
Mrs. Macumber,
Present.
Ms. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Kaplis,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The motion carries 3-0 with 2 present. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 6C, and I I regret that I do not have a copy of the letter. Ms. McComber sent an email with an attachment of the letter of the Lunenburg Select Board to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which I believe she obtained off of Facebook.
Yes.
If I could turn over the discussion of this particular item to Mrs. McComber, I think she could read the contents of the letter and
Yes,
talk about
absolutely.
it a little bit.
So, last week, I don't remember exactly what day it was. Let's see what's the date on here. There isn't one. Well, the Town of Lunenburg Select Board, posted that they were demanding advocacy for additional local aid to municipalities. And the letter reads the following: "We, the Lunenburg Select Board, hereby demand advocacy from State Senator John Cronin, State Representative Margaret Scarsdale, and State Representative Michael Kuzmarek, and immediate action from the legislature to increase local aid to municipalities. Whereas the town of Lunenburg is experiencing ongoing funding crisis from the increased cost such as school transportation, health insurance, out-of-district placements, and other costs that far exceed the limits placed upon municipalities by Proposition 2.5. And whereas for a second year in a row, like many municipalities across the Commonwealth, Lunenburg is faced with the possibility of drastic cuts to public education with a 2,000,008% shortfall in FY26. And whereas overall Chapter 90 funding has remained static at 200 million since 2012. And despite the historic investments made with the Chapter 90 bond bill, the purchasing power of municipalities remains below what it was a decade ago due to inflation and rising construction costs. Now, therefore, the Lunenburg Select Board respectfully requests that our state delegation advocate for the following increases in local aid. 1, increase the minimum per pupil funding level to $150 per pupil from $104 per pupil. 2, increase the amount of unrestricted general government aid and prioritize any available supplemental one-time funds for municipalities. 3, further invest in the Chapter 90 program beyond the increases made by the bond bill. And 4, recognize Chapter 70 formula is significantly inadequate in its current funding and act with urgency to reform the modernize the program, signed this 18th day of March. And then the whole select board signed it. I sent this to Mr. Francis when I saw it, suggesting that maybe it was something we could propose that our select board send a very similarly worded letter, because it seems like it's a common problem across the Commonwealth that there's no money for anything, and the schools are costing more money to each town and city, at least, this on this side of the state. When I read it, I was like, oh, you could literally substitute Templeton in any of those words. It's like, oh, I was like wondering if someone was tapping into our brains here.
That's exactly how I felt when I
Yeah.
read the letter. And I know that Mr. Kaplis and Mr. Mosier and Julie, I know that you don't have a copy of the letter in front of you, and I really regret not doing that. But I guess, do you have anything, as I said, I thought that you could have just put Templeton instead of Lunenburg, and it would be the same problems that we face. Do you have any thoughts, any of you, as to whether we should recommend that this Templeton Select Board send a similar letter? Just, I'm just looking for thoughts.
Well, Lunenburg gets way more money on Chapter 90 than we get,
Yes, they do.
like $1 million.
They're a much bigger town.
That's no excuse.
You know what struck me about the letter is Lunenburg is a bigger town and they're a much wealthier. I'm sure their median income is far higher than Templeton, and yet they have the same problem. What?
I'm sure the real estate tax is just a little tad higher. than
Yeah,
that.
Tad.
It
Yeah,
sure is.
Well, look at Concord's Chapter 90. It's 5 times bigger than ours, 5 times bigger than Lunenburg's. And that's the problem. They go by road miles, they go by square feet. It's I don't know how they formulate it, but it's these bigger cities and towns like Cambridge and Malden, they all get higher chapter 90 amounts than we get out here.
And we're one of the 25 largest towns by land area in the whole Commonwealth.
Yep.
But the other side of the coin, I've had a conversation about the topics in this letter with John Zlotnick, and I last had a conversation a week ago because I plead with him regularly to try to get more money for us. And his point, and it's a very good point, is that he says it's very hard for me to convince representatives from towns like Concord, Carlisle, or Wellesley, or Dover, Sherburne, any of those communities. It's very hard to convince them to have the state send more money to our schools and roads and unlimited local aid, because Templeton already receives 65% of our budget monies from the state. That was what Mr. Zlotnick said, and I have no reason to doubt that figure. And he says, I find it very hard to negotiate with a representative who represents a town where they only have their budget supplemented between 10 and 15% by the state, as opposed to 65%. And he's got a point. He's got a point. I think since the time that I've been on advisory, before I came on advisory, because I felt the state treated the town unfairly, and I still feel that way. But Representative Zlotnick also has a point. He really does. So I listened to the letter, and I listened to Representative Zlotnick, and I really wonder if the letter would do any good.
I would have to agree with you on that point, only because I feel like looking at the school budget over the last, say, 7 years or so, looking at comparing their budget and what they actually get and how they utilize their budget, that's in their control. They need to sit down and be able to do the budget with their number. I don't feel that they've wholeheartedly done that to the best of their ability. And so saying, the towns, we get 65% toward our town and stuff, that's quite a bit compared to 10% from a neighbor, you know what I mean?
Right.
So who's budgeting and who's spending, and why do they continuously ask for more would be my question. It's tough to sell that.
But I also had a conversation as part of that same conversation with Representative Zlotnick, and it was when this whole issue of, the dance between the school and the town, it was $1 million at the beginning, and, we ended up with 200 and some thousand, and it was too much cut, or is the budget not high enough? And so, Representative Zlotnick, from his perch at the state, he's looking at all the regional school districts and the 60 odd districts.
Templeton paying for 2 towns.
Right, but there's well over 100 towns that are within a district, and the problem is with the funding is that the Narragansett Regional School District, by most metrics, is right at the bottom. From his point of view, or the view of the Concord Carlisle rep, is the Narragansett Regional School District is being funded at the very bottom, and the town is doing the least amount that it can do, or very little over and above the amount. But the other side of the coin is that for the town to spend money to get at the level that even approaches the middle of the pack, we would probably have to spend an additional $2 to $3 million, which the town does not have. It's just a conundrum, I guess.
This comes at 2.5 override that no one wants to hear about.
Well, if you talk about net school spending, on the top end of our net school spending, what we're supposed to spend by law, what the school's supposed to have by law is just $20 million. They're having a budget of over almost 25 million. They're $5 million over net school spending on the top end.
Yet they say that it's not enough, and the state is saying, or through Representative Zlotnick, is, you're kind of on the bottom end of that, at $25 million.
And let's not be disillusioned. We still have the debt for the school as well, which is another, million and a half dollars. So we have 1.2 million we have to spend every year just on the debt by ourselves. But I like the letter. I think the letter is a great idea. I mean, it's not going to hurt nothing. I mean, obviously with, John Schlotnick and our senators I think they're doing the best they can with what they have. So to have a letter similar to Lunenburg, I think that would be a great step forward for the select board to at least entertain. We did our job, and we did our recommendation to them.
Well, there's another third side of the coin, as it were. Representative Zlotnick reached out to me probably about a week ago, and he's very concerned about what's been going on in the town, and he asked to appear in front of our board at some point, and I said, sure. Because I told him, we were talking about these numbers the way we have been the last few minutes. And I told him that we have a real problem and that we need to communicate better with the state. And we need to work this out. And so he has agreed to appear in front of advisory. It'll probably be sometime in June, if I had to guess. I still have to work out a date with him. We need more money. He's a thoughtful guy. He now has 6 terms in the legislature, so he's no longer a backbencher. And that means something. And he has a very compact district with 3 towns, Ashburnham, Winchendon, and Templeton, that are very similar in size, very similar with their problems. And for him, that's good. That's good. And I would like to accept his offer to attend one of our meetings. But I do like the idea of the letter, because I think the letter, if we word it, I think that would be food for discussion with John. So I guess my question is it the consensus to have a motion that that we draft, and I'll work with Jacqueline to draft a letter, but to draft a letter along the lines of very similar to the Lunenburg letter that Jacqueline read. Would this be a consensus of our board?
Well, for me, I think it's a great idea. I just don't want, I think that the people in TV land need to also realize that that our town worth has gone up significantly from even within the last year, where the town's worth down just over $1 billion. Our levy limit and our ceiling is unbelievable. Our debt went down from 12 to just below 10%. There's a lot of things that the state looks at when you send letters. They look at all the variables in a town, and one of the things that they do look at is what your debt ceiling is, what your levy limit is, what your town worth is, because all that factors in to what your overall budgetary potential responsibilities are. And if your debt ceiling is high like ours, like we have a lot of room, millions of dollars in room. Not that I want to go there, I'm just making a statement, and I think Ms. Toast in the room, so that would be a good pointer to look at as well, because the state pushes out stuff all day long concerning debt ceilings and worths and how this works and what Proposition 2.5 does. And Proposition 2.5, what does that mean? Well, we can only go up 2.5%. Like, okay, well, what if everything else goes up? National average is 3.4%. Well, that doesn't help us. School buses go up 18%. Well, that doesn't help us. The school goes up 9%. Well, that doesn't help us. Everything's, inflation's inflation. We can't control that. But how can you control what we have within the resources of the town? And I think a lot of other people besides us on this committee, meaning the taxpayers, need to, look at these things as well, because all these things matter. And when the state decides to give money out to different areas, looking at Templeton, like, oh, we already give you 68% assistance. I mean, how much? And we were only given, Concord Carlisle 48%. I'm like, so how much more can we give you and not give them any more money? Well, even though their tax brackets are higher and the houses are worth more money and they pay more in taxes than we do. I mean, I did the comparison study, and I hope everybody got a chance to look at that, because being at 1212, I'm like, okay, that's great. That's great. But people don't realize why we're at 1212. And I think if you go back, because no matter what we do today, it's going to affect 10 years from now. So stuff that happened 10 years ago is affecting us today, unfortunately. And then sadly, that's where we're at. We can only go up so far, and there's only so much revenues that you can pull from. And there's only, we always talk about spend within our means. I'm like, let's spend within our means. Okay, well, if everything's going up 3.5%, 3.4% or higher, how can you spend within your means? So I just want everybody to understand that there's more to the matrix here than that meets the eye, that we all need to look at, not just one aspect. Like, yeah, the school's going up $1 million every year. Well, why? Well, because it's 9%. What's 9% of, $8 million? Well, it's this. Well, that's a lot, and same with our revenues. I'm still looking at that as well. And these things aren't adding up to me as well. How does the town go down and lose $238,000 from last year to this year? I wouldn't say lose, but from last year's budget to this year's budget, there's a difference of $238,000 less. Can you imagine working and taking a $20,000 cut in pay? How would that affect people at home?
And people should be asking those questions more often.
Yes. And those are the questions we need to be asking, unfortunately.
You brought up something very interesting, Mr. Caplis. My understanding is that Templeton collects or the revenues of 43% of the levy limit. So in other words, you could raise taxes by 57% before you reach the levy limit. And probably to right size the government, you probably gotta somehow eat up maybe a third of that levy limit, in other words, 25% to get to that. So
It's food for thought.
and my question to you is, when you did your comparison study, because I haven't actually looked at that, but when you looked at the other, 10 or 11 towns, did you get a sense of what percentage of the levy limit they were spending?
I did, and that's actually on the report as well. We're at the bottom. I did this a couple of years ago with some help. I'll tell you, we were like middle of the pack as far as the town goes. We were like really middle of where we were within the 10 communities. Now we are at the bottom, and somebody made a comment to me like, oh, well, this town's only at $10 or $12.39. I'm like, yeah, but 39 cents to some communities, that could be $500,000 or more. So when you look at cents, it adds up at the end. But everybody, the closest one to us, we were 1212, I think 1238, I think was the closest comparison that we had. I don't have it in front of me. But we're at the bottom we're at the low end of the barrel at this point, as far as tax rate and where we should be. I think where we should be, because, and listen, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I don't want my taxes to go up either. Because if my house is public records, you can all check it out. I'm paying almost $10,000 a year. I don't want to pay any more taxes if I have to. But if I have to put my kid in school, or my kid needs special, needs or special education that he really needs, then I'm willing to pay whatever it takes for my kid to go to school. I'm willing to pay, for a policeman to be at my door, or a firefighter if something should happen to me. I'm willing to pay those costs. But obviously, a lot of us aren't, and I get that. But at the end of the day, I think what the town needs to rally together as a town, needs to pull together as a town to see, like, okay, where can we do? What can we do? What avenues we can only give recommendations to select board. We're looking at the BVAs and we're finding discrepancies, but minor stuff. a couple $1,000s here, a $500,000 shortfall there, which is still major. But it's like, what are we going to do at the end of the day? How do we bring the town together? There's no, I mean, Miss Toth is here. I mean, she's, flying, waving the flag like, hey, listen, look at this, look at this. We need, all the 9,000 folks in town, 8,000 somewhat folks in town, we all need to be waving the same flag, buying the same t-shirt.
So is your sense, Mr. Caplis, is the levy limit is that the town is kind of an outlier at the bottom?
We have a lot of room. I think the major part of us was the growth that we've had. Our worth is over $1 billion. That's based on, homes, all our stuff, our buildings, our vehicles, our fire trucks, all that stuff adds up to just over $1 billion. So, I mean, that went up from, I think I looked at it 4 or 5 years ago, and we were maybe 800 million. I think we're 800 million. So to grow over $1 million in that short period of time, that's huge, which also reflects everything. It affects the levy limit, it really affects everything. And these are the margins that the state uses. This is the margin that the Department of Revenue uses. So when you go back and say, well, we need more money, well, they're going to come back and say, well, your levy limit's this. You guys know what you need to do in order to fix that, to get more revenue base to come in. I mean, using every avenue that this town is very smart. I mean, despite what people want to say, it's used every resource that it can on revenues, every piece of revenue that they could use, from meals tax to, the ARPA funds, the ESSER monies. I mean, it did what it could do over the time that it did it. We're at the tail end of that now. Like, okay, now, as you saw with the school being, almost $1 million. And next year, just based on projections of just salaries and bus, you're looking at just over $400,000 increase just on those two things. If we have a special needs issue, a special needs child comes into town, I mean, that's $100,000 right there. People don't understand that. They don't understand how that works. I mean, this has got to be more informative information and communication between us as the advisory, the people who we represent, and the select board, so they all understand, like, we're all on the same page here, but how do we get from point A to C on the same line? How do we get there? I mean, what's the conversation going to be is, how do we get from point A to point B? How do we get there? I mean, you want to flame and yawn on a ramen noodle budget. I'm like, I don't know how else to explain it. And again, I'm being perfectly honest. I don't want my taxes to go up either. I don't. I think 1212 is great. I think what I'm paying right now is fair enough for me on a fixed income. And I'm just like everybody else. I'm a retiree, just like a lot of people out there, and I'm on a fixed income too. And I don't want them to go up. But what are we going to do?
Let me ask you this then. I like the idea of the letter. I really do.
Yes, I do too.
However, some of the items that you raised about the levy limit. Let's say we bring John Zlotnick in, and I'd be very interested to hear what he would have to say, to the townspeople. But I do wonder if at some point, a letter would backfire because of the levy limit. It really is low.
I don't think it's going to backfire. I mean, I think it's just going to open up people's eyes. Like, okay, so what's Templeton going to do? Maybe a DOR, Department of Revenue rep should come up and be like, okay, what other things can we do? Maybe that might be something we can request, because I know we have a Department of Revenue rep that looks over at Templeton. Why can't we have that individual come up to one of our meetings and maybe educate us, and not just educate us, but educate the people as well, to be more informative of like how municipal government actually works and where the tax dollars actually go and how do we spend them. We have the basic premise, we have the basic budget. I'm proud to say that we've had a balanced budget since 2016. To date, we've had a balanced budget. All our audits have been done, completed. We're doing everything what we need to do right. But our with inflation, our revenues are static, they're staying the same, but everything else is going up. So what are we supposed to do? Where do you get more money. I mean, basically you cut services. I mean, that's basically where you're at.
You end up back in 2010. That's where you end up.
Well, I mean, cut the school did a great job. They cut their budget. I mean, I can't. I mean, they spent 5 years building their their school system, our school system, in a way where they had a lot of key things in place, languages in the middle school, which we didn't have. We lost. We finally got things back, and with a swipe of a pen, boom, all of that's gone. So that 800 plus thousands of dollars that were cut, 90% of it, 95% of it, other than the 70,000 they took from insurance, all impacts students. All of it.
All right. What I
yes,
would what I would like to ask then is, I would like to entertain a motion as to whether we should or should not, write a letter that mirrors the Lunenburg Select Board letter to the Commonwealth. So if there is a motion, I'd be willing to work with Jacqueline, and we could come up with a letter for the next meeting for review and approval. So I guess the question is, does anybody wish to make a motion that that advisory draft a letter on the model of the Lunenburg Select Board letter that Jacqueline read earlier this evening? It's probably about as clear as mud.
I'll make a motion for that to take place. I think that's a great step moving forward. At least it gives the state the ability to see what we're trying to do and seek the help that we're trying to, that we need. I don't think it's going to backfire. So yes, I'll make a motion that we draft a letter to the Board of Selectmen based off the Lunenburg model. Obviously, our figures will be different, obviously.
I recommend that they send that to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yes.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I second that.
Any further discussion? There being none, I will make a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Moser?
Yes.
I'm not going to support that. No, my vote would be no.
Yes.
I will vote yes. With the understanding is, when the letter is drafted, we'll have one more bite at the apple to decide whether to send the letter or not. Okay, the next item. This is 6D. This is a situation that Mr. Bennett and also indirectly Mr. May they brought to my attention is the Royalston Road project has been in the planning stage and design stage for many years, and apparently Mr. Bennett informed me, and I believe he may have placed something on the select board agenda, but there needs to be expended an additional $425,000 for design work. And so the state, the Mass DOT, and I believe also the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, I think they're working hand in hand with this project. But they need a commitment letter from the town of Templeton that the town is willing to spend $425,000 for additional design work for Royalston Road. And if this letter of commitment, if this is successfully written and transmitted to the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission and the state DOT, then the project would go forward and probably undergo construction in 2 or 3 fiscal years. But if the letter of commitment is not made and received, I believe by the end of this month, it's a very short date, then the project could very well go to the bottom of the project priority list, and it could be several more years before the project would be considered again. Mr. Bennett pointed out to me that, and I haven't been on long enough where I'm familiar with this project for a long time. So perhaps you, Julie, or you, Mr. Kaplis, who have, been in town government a lot longer than I have, maybe you know a little bit more about the length of time, but it sounds to me like the project has been in the works for at least 15 years. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
I would push more toward 20 years.
Okay, so it sounds to me like if this letter of commitment is not written
We should-
and it goes to the bottom of the list, that it could be 30 years before the project is completed or even started. So that's the reason why I put that on the agenda, because it seems like one of those little things that if the town doesn't do it, that doesn't mean that we have to come up with the money by the end of the month. It doesn't mean that. It just means that we would commit to spending the money, either through a debt exclusion or, maybe as an appropriation, over a period of time.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I believe in 2017, we already did a letter of commitment for this particular project, but I would need time to review that before, I can say that for sure, but I do believe we've been down this avenue already.
For the tip,
So again, it wouldn't hurt, but
Yeah, I just don't want to see the town miss a deadline.
right,
it's been on the tip list before, hasn't it, Julie?
I believe in 2017, we sent a letter of commitment, John. I could be wrong on the year. And once again, we did a commitment. We put more money into this particular project. Why isn't this project going forward? I did watch some of the people that live on Royalston Road, giving their opinions, and they are very frustrated, and I would be as well as a taxpaying citizen. There's no excuse for the town of Templeton not to be continuously going through with this project.
Mhm.
20 years in the making is my frustration. I mean, to do another letter and do an additional 425, where are we gonna get that? We're just gonna pull it out of our change? I mean, I don't know, it's just frustrating.
No, I agree. I mean, I remember,
Sure.
This is a letter I got from Brian Doherty, and he wrote it to Jeff, and Jeff forwarded it to me.
Do you want me to read that?
If you could read that and then maybe discuss that in just a moment.
Sure. So I guess this comes from Brian Doherty. It's a letter that was sent on March 26th to Jeff, saying at this point, we are drafting a list that includes this project of FY 2930 based on the information we have at this point and the lack of movement. This seems like the most realistic spot. We do revisit this every year, so this time next year could look different and could see Route 68 move either way. It is good that design is being discussed in town and probably necessary. I believe we've been here, but a letter of commitment from the town would help. There are some communication issues going back the last year or so between us, MassDOT, Templeton, and the design consultant. Both MassDOT and myself were unable to get updates from the town or design consultant, and we were worried about long-term commitment. A renewed letter of commitment would help, not only for this year, but for the next year when we revisit the tip. I will make sure any letter received is included in the final document. If we could get that by 4/30/25, I will make sure it's included. An emailed PDF of a letter of support on town letterhead would work fine. We are aware of how bad the road is and are looking forward to seeing it rebuilt, but have to make sure the design schedule meets up with the year it is placed. Otherwise, the whole region would miss out on funding allocated and not advertised. Probably the most important thing to do at this point is to work with the design consultant to push that process forward. Thanks for following up, and please feel free to reach out or call with any questions or input. And again, that's Brian Doherty, AICP, Transportation Projects Director, Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. There you go.
Yeah, thank you for reading that.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, can we make sure that gets into the upload as well, so the folks can actually see that since we read it into the record?
Yes, yes, I will.
You know, and I think you're right. We've been on this road for a while, and there is no excuse. There isn't any. Us being not taking the appropriate action on multitudes of infrastructure problems within this community have led us down a road that, you know, it's going to cost more and more dollars. I'm not going to bring up the Main Street Bridge. I'm not going to bring up Hamlet Mill Bridge. I'm not going to bring up, you know, Stonebridge. I mean, there's a whole list of infrastructure and then sub-infrastructure such as water mains and water lines that also need to be repaired as well. And what's, you know, Templeton's biggest issue is we keep kicking the can down the road, so to speak, and unfortunately we end up with the short end of the straw. And it's going to cost another $400,000+ for engineering now, because all the engineering stuff for the DOT has changed. And I think Jeff said something to me about that because of drainage and, you know, a whole bunch of issues that have come up, you know, because of that road. But again, that road's, you know, it's a $1 million a mile. That's basically the best way so people can understand to do a road. It's about $1 million a mile. So, but that road needs to get done, and I would definitely entertain I would definitely do a motion to at least try to get back on the tip list. I mean, that's definitely where we need to start. Where we're going to get the 400,000, you know, like Julie said, I'm not sure, but I know our grant writer is doing a great job. The other people that work for the town are doing tremendous work, and I think at the end of the day, this is going to, you know, put us in a position that's going to make us better.
Are the members in favor of advisory writing a letter to the select board asking that they take action on this forthwith at once?
I am.
I am as well, but why wouldn't they do it without asking our permission? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's such a huge project. They could just do this without it coming to us. They have the authority to do that. Bob Zolzak has been in place for how many years now? And has quarterly brought up Royalston Rd, looking for the support of the select board. And now it's in front of us. So of course we should ask them to support this. We should say, sure, Jeff, write a letter, right?
Absolutely. And I would say where the money's going to be is, I mean, worst case scenario, if we got to get
Yeah, you're gonna get your money, but yes, definitely do a letter.
but I mean, if we get it, I mean, the town's able to get it now. If we have to get a ban, then we get a ban. I mean, it just adds more debt to us, but I mean, the town can definitely get a loan, so to speak. A band is like a loan, so you get a loan. I mean, if that's what the town needs to do and go forth with it, and then so be it. I mean, but yeah, it needs to get done.
It's 20 years old. I remember talking with the Skeltons about this about a year ago, and they told me that they arranged for the original amount of money and then somehow it got off the list.
Mhm.
And how long have they been out of town government? They've been out of town government at least 15 years. I don't
Some of the
understand.
members that currently live on Royalston Road were using the 20-year mark. When I came on to the Board of Selectmen in 2015, this was a pretty big issue. We allocated some, I believe, Chapter 90s towards certain small projects within that area. And it started to evolve, and I do believe we did a letter of commitment. And we started out with all these engineers. We had everything worked out in 2017.
Okay.
So 8 years later, I would love to see why we may have a threat of going to the bottom of a list. You know, that's the frustration with me personally, but That's okay.
I can see where you'd be very frustrated with that.
It's ridiculous, actually, but whatever.
Right.
Next,
All right, so I would entertain a motion to write a letter to the Board of Selectmen about the letter of commitment.
so moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote, Mr. Caplis. Any further discussion or are we all set? Okay, Mr. Caplis, how do you vote?
absolutely.
Mr. Moser?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
And I also vote yes. And what I will do is I will try to get a draft of that letter out within a couple of weeks.
But we do have a deadline of the 30th, right? That was
Yes.
part of the letter, so.
so he's asking you to write the letter? And then they're gonna review it? I just wanna get that clear.
I put it on the agenda. Because Mr. Bennett pointed out to me that this was in danger of going off the list.
Okay,
Okay, and that's why, and you read the letter.
right,
There's another, letter of commitment needed, and I just think that we as advisory should write a letter quickly.
and give it to the board to
give it to
sign
the
off on.
board to sign
Okay.
off on. And-
Just wasn't
and
sure how that
generate-
worked.
And generate a letter of commitment if that is needed.
I'm just not sure we have 2 weeks if we're gonna write a letter.
It's
and
most
get it to the
definitely
select
needed
board and then-
tomorrow.
And then
I
they
don't-
get, whenever their next meeting is, and then they vote on it, and then they write their letter to whatever. We may not, we have 27 days, so.
There's a holiday in the mix, I think, too, right?
Yeah, I will get on, as long as you let me do it with the chairman's signature, I'll get it done. I'll make every effort to get it done prior to the next Board of Selectmen meeting, Select Board meeting. That's agreeable to all.
And make sure that they have time if they need to post it or put it on their agenda. We need to add 3 days to that or whatever as well, right?
Yes.
So
Okay.
we're gonna amend that motion?
Sure,
I think the motion was just to write a letter, right?
right, I think it,
Address
yeah,
the
we didn't
time.
have a time frame, but like
Forthwith is,
forthwith is
With
like,
just a chair, with just the chair signature, though? Do we need to?
yeah, I can amend it to say with the chair's signature. Sure,
all right, I would make every effort to, to make it available, at town hall, so. Okay. All right, thank you. This is the last item. I put the last item 6E, I put this on the
Yeah,
agenda.
we got to do a roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm losing my mind, Mr. Caplis.
Oh, you are. It's okay. That's why we're all here together.
mine's already gone, bud, so hey, I'm good, I'm here. I got a tan too.
I'm sorry, members. Okay, on that motion, Mr. Caplis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
On the motion as amended,
yes.
yes.
I vote yes as well.
Jacqueline?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, the final item on the agenda,
Where did this come?
it came from me.
Okay,
Came from me. I at the budget meeting on March 15th, I have to tell you, I was appalled. I was appalled that the police department budget was cut by about $100,000. And that Mr. Caplis did the comparison towns. We have 9 police officers. We have had at least 400 additional residents, at least 400 to 500 additional residents in the last 3 years. The school district has grown by 180 students. And, the town is growing, and we have the police department that we had in 2010. And the reason why I put this on 3 times in the past, I have spoken out publicly and warned the town. And I think a couple of other members have also spoken out, is that we are very close to having a black swan event where people are injured or killed needlessly, in part because we don't have an adequate police force. And what made me put this on the agenda was within the last week, there was a stabbing incident in town. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, other than say there was a stabbing incident. And if that wasn't a black swan event, it was a dark brown swan event. I can see an event like this happening in the future where somebody is injured or killed or whatnot, and there could be a lawsuit where the town has to pay an amount that is equal to the entire town and school budget put together. It could really happen. And I just, now the pushback on this is, Mr. May, I communicate with Mr. May, and he brings up a very good point. He says, the town will not balance the budget, it's right from our policies, the town will not balance the budget by using one-time or other non-recurring revenues to fund ongoing expenses. And he's absolutely right, by using free cash to hire additional police officers or additional firefighters. And you really need those people. I don't think there's any disagreement about that, but to do so out of free cash is really going against, the financial policies of the town. And Mr. May is correct in pointing that out. He said in his own way, if you're the financial watchdogs, you should not be advocating something on the agenda which goes, flies against existing policies. But so the town will not balance the budget by using one-time or other non-recurring revenues to fund ongoing expenditures. However, there is an exception, and it is except in the event of an emergency or extraordinary or unforeseen events. And I would suggest to you that the lack of police officers and not funding that is an emergency type of event. And I just really, really fear that the town is going to have, some kind of an event. I look at my own house. I've had, and I've said this before in public, I've had drunk drivers going the wrong way. My house almost burned down. Neighboring fire departments sent tankers and pumpers before our own fire department could, while there was a red flag type wind event. And I'm just one taxpayer out of 4,000. It's just the police department does not make. I think in a recent year they made and continue to make fewer than 50 OUI arrests per year, and probably for a town this size they should be making at least 100 OUI arrests per year. And the reason why they only make 50 is most OUIs occur at night. So you have an officer on at night. If he makes the OUI arrest at night, he has to go into court sometime during the day because the local courts are in session during the day. So say that officer makes 10 OUI arrests and has to make 10 different court dates. So he's working all night, and then he's all day in court, all night, all day in court. So you don't have the manpower to make the necessary OUI arrests to make the town safer. So I throw this out. I've given you both sides. I've given you both sides of this. It is against a existing town policy, but I really think that the need for additional police and firefighters is really, particularly the police, is really an emergency event. So I put that on the agenda. I think it needs discussion, not necessarily a recommendation, but I would just like to hear your thoughts on that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Moser.
So I'm glad you put this on. I do laud the instinct that you have that, you want to see an increase in public safety funding for police and fire. The fiscal policy that you referred to, I think, is prudent, whether it's our fiscal policy, written down or not. I do strongly feel that it's just not a prudent idea to use one-time funds in order to fund recurring expenses for the town, especially when it comes to people, right? So if we don't have that free cash flow or don't budget for it in a future year, we're hiring people just to lay them off again, which isn't fair to them. And it's a waste of money for the town to train them and equip them and then lose them. But I think it does offer an opportunity for us to have a wider discussion about the level of staffing that the town deserves or might be appropriate as the town has grown for police, fire, and other public safety.
You ever see the movie Moneyball?
I have.
You know, in Brad Pitt in the movie Moneyball, he talks about the Oakland Athletics budget. You know, he talks about it being, the New York Yankees being here, and then the bottom team being here, and then 50 feet of crap, and then you get to the Oakland Athletics budget. And we are the Oakland Athletics as far as funding our police department. And we're an outlier, and this cannot go on. And we can't get money from the state. We're unable to pass debt exclusions and Prop 2.5 overrides. We don't have the free cash to do this, but we have a very serious public safety problem, or the lack of public safety in this town. And it really is a serious problem. And I would hate to see it solved by somebody getting injured or killed, or multiple people getting injured or killed, either at the school or at a drinking establishment or a huge fire. You know, and these are all within the realm of possibility. And all it takes is one lawsuit, and lawsuits, like that, if the town was found negligent, it could be an amount equal to the entire budget. And then what are you gonna do? And it could really happen. And this stabbing incident is just, if you had an adequate police force, that incident might not have happened. Might. I know that's a big word, might. But there's also the possibility of, lawsuits coming from, say there was a multiple stabbing incident, or there may be a lawsuit coming from this incident. It's reached the point where it is, in my mind, a public safety emergency. That's all I have to say.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Mr. Mosier on his comments, because you can't sustain that in the future if you use it one-time free cash. I really, and I have been an advocate for Templeton PD and highway and fire for many years. I would say that I 100% agree with you when I saw the incident of that as well. I also think that the town is responsible to stop giving 9 or 10 lives to establishments in this town that have that issue. Don't sign off. Start looking, start doing your homework on that kind of thing as well. But I agree that we need to find monies to sustain more police officers. And over the years, we actually got the police department pretty good staffing, and now it's getting knocked down again. And he has been one department head I have to accredit to always trying to pinch the penny and try his best with part-time. But I feel that he deserves, that department deserves, and the people of the town deserve for us to find ways to maintain more full-time police officers.
I listen
That
very
is like
carefully.
that is definitely should be our top priority right now. With how much growth has come into town.
No, I listen very
It's huge.
carefully at these budget meetings, and I've heard Mr. Bennett over and over again. He said, I can work with $100,000 less for 1 year, but I can't after that. I'll make it work. And I commend him for doing that, but in the long run, it's suicide. It really is. And I don't know how we get the money, to adequately fund police officers. I really don't. I mean, Mr. Moser is
Not an
right.
easy answer. It's not an easy answer.
And I put this out, I'm not gonna ask for motion or recommendations or anything. I do this, hopefully people look at the tape of the meeting and, and just see what they are up against as residents of a town that really has 6 or 7 fewer police officers than they really should have, and probably 4 or 5 firefighters fewer than they should have.
It's also difficult to hire new hires with the salary that's being offered. It's not desirable.
It's not desirable. Nobody wants to be a police officer. 30 years ago, you'd have 4 or 5 applicants for every open position, and now you can't get applicants, so that's a problem. You can't have part-time police officers because of the training requirements. You might as well.
Well, that's what we have a lot of, correct? Didn't they just post a new one, part-time? If you take all these part-time police officers and create a couple of full-time police officers, you can sustain financially over the years. Might want to look at that in your budget as well, You can't run the town on part-time police. And
Right.
back in the day, fire department was all volunteer. You can't do that either, but fire department has been built on quite a bit in the last 10 years that I've been around. I feel like Templeton police have gone up and down with trying to help balance the budget in town. They do their best. I'll go another year without 100,000, but I can't go another year next year. You know what I mean? We need to really look at that, and they need to try to figure out.
Well, the
And-
fire department's gone up because they have ambulance receipts. That's probably about 42-43% of the
Right.
firefighter's salary. There's nothing like that for a police officer.
Right.
There's no backup funding. And
Budget.
and to your point about part-time officers is, who would want to be a part-time officer for McDonald's pay with all the training that's involved?
Right,
It
right.
just-
Oh,
so-
it's always been a
So,
challenge.
so, so I'm not
What are you
asking for
doing
any
there?
motions. I just wanted to go out there. That's why I put it on the agenda. We have a serious problem that needs to be addressed. I don't know how.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I agree with Andrew as well as everybody else. I mean, obviously utilization of one-time funds, absolutely not. I'm not a big supporter of that. And speaking of that, as you know, our school assessment is coming out of where this year? Let me think. Oh, free cash. How is that possible? That's a whole nother discussion for another day, but I'm not happy about that either. It's not, I'm working some numbers here at my desk. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm like, how do you pull you're going to take 215,000 out of the 800,000 we get from free cash? It's all spent, but it's not spent on capital assessments or needs. It's not spent on the things that, the employees need to do their job. It's spent on, it's one-time funds that we're spending on the budget. This is the same things that happened back in 2010, using one-time funds to offset the budget, which cannot happen. It's not sustainable. It cannot happen, period. I mean, paying a bill because of snow and ice, I got it. Snow and ice, I got it. I got it. We budget so much, and at the end of the year, we deficit spend, and we use free cash to pay that bill. I get it, but to offset it for a school assessment bill or any type of assessment bill, or bringing on, law enforcement or firefighters, there's no sustainability there. And without having sustainability, like Andrew said, you're going to lay them off after you get them all trained and ready to go. Next thing you know, they're laid off. That's not sustainable. There's got to be a way. Like I said, the town has to come together and somehow kumbaya and say, okay, what do we do and how are we going to move forward? And what are our needs going to be? 3 additional police officers. I get it. 3 additional firefighter paramedics. I mean, the fire department's working with 6 people for 24-hour operations, 7 days a week. There's got to be discussions on that, on how do we fix it, not just kick the can down the road and say, hey, okay, chief, you can need $150,000 this year, but you can't do it next year. No, I get it. Part-time officers, it's not going to happen. With the Police Reform Act that the state put in place, Chief Bennett can't sustain part-time officers. It's impossible. It's impossible. So the bottom line is the communication's got to be, how do we get from A to B? And what communication can we, and what conversations can we have, and what collaboration can we make in making this happen? We can always kick the can down the road, but I mean, there's only so far you kick that can before it's going to kick you in the face.
In any event, I'm not gonna ask for a motion on this. I kind of threw it out there. And it's really for the public's benefit as much as anything else. At this time, what I would like to do is ask for member comments, and this time I'll start with you, Mr. Caplis.
Thanks. I think I've spoken enough. Have a great night, everybody.
All right, Ms.
You too,
Richard,
John, no, I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. Conrad.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. I do have a couple of brief comments before I go to you, Mr. Moser. You know, I do want to say on a future agenda will be Representative Zlotnick, and hopefully we can have discussion on some of these issues. But also very quickly, Mr. Caplis raised the issue of what happens to or where in the budget is shown the dividends and interest generated from the town funds. And I just want to say that's something else that will be an agenda item as well. So having said that, I would now like to go to Mr. Moser. At this time, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Noel. First off, I just wanted to thank my fellow members and residents for your input tonight. I wanted to take this opportunity to share some of my thoughts about the longer term budget situation facing the town, as well as some personal thoughts. I joined the advisory committee a little over a year ago. It was fiscal year 2024. It's been a great experience, and I've learned a lot about municipal budgeting in general and our town's budget in particular. We're currently finishing the budget process for FY 2026. It's going to be a challenging budget year for the town, its employees, and its residents. Many of those issues have been evident for everybody who's been following the last few months. I've come to believe, unfortunately, that fiscal year 2027 is likely to be even more challenging than 2026. In order to provide the services that the townspeople expect and deserve, I believe the town will need to increase its revenue for 2027. The town is facing the same issues that our residents are facing in their own financial plan, with costs over the last few years increasing faster than income in many cases. The costs to provide necessary services have increased faster than the revenue the town brings in. The best hope, in my opinion, to deal with increased revenues for 2027, aside from additional aid from the state that may or may not come, or a tax increase, the O word as I like to call it, override. Our best plan is to get the Baldwinville School project completed and quickly. This is a $30 to $40 million project that will count as new growth, and the town should strive to get it onto the tax rolls as soon as possible, preferably in time to impact the FY 2027 budget in a positive way. I've also come to believe over the last few months that the major driver of budget issues for the town in the coming years will likely be the Narragansett Regional School District. The trajectory of the district's budget with 8, 9, 10, 11% yearly increases is not sustainable with Proposition 2.5 increases alone. It's my assessment that there is a structural issue with the current district budget. I hope that people will think creatively and work constructively to restructure that budget, or perhaps restructure the district itself through the addition or subtraction of member towns, rather than fall back on the easy answers of service cuts or overrides. We need to think creatively. A failure to address this will set the town of Templeton's budget up for hardship for years to come. Now, on a personal note, I've served on this committee since February of last year. As I said before, it's been a great experience. I've met so many residents, town employees, and officials who truly care about the well-being of the town. Really met some great people. I'm honored to serve in this capacity, and I hope I've made a small contribution with my time and efforts. Anyone who knows me knows that the most important thing in my world is my children. I have 3 wonderful daughters, and they're all getting older every day. I realized recently that town meeting this year falls on my daughter's birthdays, and there's no way I'd miss my baby girl's birthday for anything. I also realized I'm likely going to be out of town during our pre-town meeting coming up in the next few weeks, and I've had some other changes to my time and availability this year as well. I've come to the conclusion that I can no longer dedicate the time that my fellow members and fellow residents deserve. Therefore, with much appreciation and gratitude and a smile, I want to share with you that tonight will be my final meeting as a member of the advisory committee, at least for now. I hope in the future to be a resource in any way that I can to all of you, to my fellow members, and to the residents of Templeton. Thank you for the opportunity to serve and speak.
Thank you, Andrew. Your financial acumen will be greatly missed. And I thank you for volunteering to serve on this board.
Thank you for your service, Andrew, to this board. It's unfortunate to see you go, but I think that's the norm. Unfortunately, it's the norm currently with some committees, and we're gonna see more. And it's unfortunate because really, I was learning a lot from you as far as the money piece of this and how this committee works. So I wish you the best in your endeavors.
I
Thanks.
appreciate that, Julie. And I'm not going anywhere. You can still call me or find me, and I'll probably
Sounds
pop into
great.
a meeting
Thank
or
you.
two.
Thank you.
Any other? There would be no other comments. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Caplis? Motion to adjourn, Mr. Caplis.
Yes, yes.
Moser?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
McCormick?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank